So today we're going to break down the 5 traits of what's called hyper-independence. And this is a really fascinating psychological profile that I bet a lot of us might see in ourselves, even if we've never had a name for it. Let's dive in.
Let me start by asking you a question, and just be honest with yourself. Do you ever feel like you are completely drowning, just overwhelmed with everything? But the idea of actually saying the words, "I need help," feels, well, impossible?
You know what's so interesting is how psychology looks at this. This isn't some character flaw. It's not about being stubborn. It's actually a really powerful survival mechanism that your brain built over a long time to protect you. And that brings us to our first section here, the silent struggle. Because that's what it is, right? Let's talk about what that really feels like on the inside.
For so many people with this trait, it genuinely feels safer, more comfortable to just battle through a problem all by yourself than to risk having to depend on somebody else. It's this quiet, invisible kind of power, and it was built in moments that no one else ever saw.
So where in the world does this instinct come from? Well, that leads us to what we can call a survivor's blueprint. It's the why behind the what.
The official term for this is hyper-independence, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a protective strategy. Your brain basically adapts and learns this one core lesson. The only person you can 100% count on is you. And it does this to avoid the pain of feeling like a burden, or worse, the sting of being let down by others.
And you can often trace this back to one of 2 very common childhood experiences. Maybe you were the easy child, the one who learned very early on not to cause any trouble, not to be a burden. Or maybe you felt more like the secondary child. You just never felt like a priority, so you learned that if you wanted something done, you had to do it yourself.
Okay, so now that we get the backstory, let's really break down the specific traits that come out of it. And we're going to start with the big one, the foundation for everything else, that extreme self-reliance.
This is so much deeper than just being a hard worker. From a psychological view, it's all tied to attachment theory. When your brain is wired from past experience to expect disappointment, asking for what you need feels really unsafe, so you just stop asking. This intense self-reliance becomes your mind's way of avoiding the risk of being let down or, on a deeper level, abandoned.
All right, let's get to our second trait. And this one might actually sound like a superpower, because in many ways, it is. It's this incredible ability to stay calm right in the middle of chaos.
Psychologists actually have a really cool term for this, stress inoculation. Basically, because you've probably had to handle high-stress situations or even emotional neglect all on your own before, your brain's alarm system just doesn't go off as easily as other people's. When a crisis hits, you're the one who stays steady while everyone else is panicking.
And that calmness, it comes from this deep, unspoken confidence. You don't ask for help because your brain does a quick calculation and realizes, hey, I've gotten through worse than this alone. It's an endurance that was built from a history of having to survive and rebuild, all by yourself.
Okay, next up we've got 2 traits that are really closely connected. They work together to form this kind of powerful inner radar for how you see yourself and the world around you.
So trait number 3 is having what's called a strong internal locus of control. In simple terms, this means your sense of self-worth, it comes from the inside. It's based on your own actions, your own logic. You don't need the constant external validation, the praise, the likes, the recognition that so many other people need to feel good about themselves.
This builds this really quiet, solid self-trust. And this quote just nails it. You feel safer within yourself than you do with a group. You trust your own compass more than you trust anyone else's directions.
And that brings us to the 4th trait, hyper-awareness. This is another survival skill that's been sharpened over years and years. It's the ability to read people, and I mean really read them, incredibly fast. You can pick up on the tiniest shifts in mood, tone, or what they're really trying to say.
So what does that actually look like? Well, you can hear the tiny shift in someone's voice that tells you they're not okay. You can feel that hidden resentment under a polite smile. You just know when someone's yes is actually a no they're afraid to say. And this is why asking for help feels so hard. You're not just hearing their words, you're sensing all this other stuff, and you just decide, you know what, it's easier if I just do it myself.
And finally, let's talk about the 5th trait, the one that really shows the hidden cost of living this way. And that trait is perfectionism.
See, that refusal to ask for help is so often tied to having incredibly high standards for yourself and your work. When you know exactly how you want something done, down to the last detail, it just feels so much more efficient to handle it yourself. And so, perfectionism creates this loop that constantly reinforces your self-reliance.
So when you look at it all, hyper-independence, it isn't a weakness at all.
It's a suit of armor, one that was built in some really tough situations. And it comes with some pretty rare strengths, incredible resilience, a steady hand under pressure, and that powerful inner radar. So that leaves us with one last question to think about. If this independence is your armor, what will you choose to build with it?